Welcome to the leading podcast for long-term weight management. Subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jenny on all social media channels. You can also sign up to the newsletter to receive frequent content and tips for weight loss success.
Hey guys, welcome to the Power Over Food podcast. I am your host, Jenny McDonald, the Food Freedom Fairy, and I am here to help you heal your relationship with food while still losing weight. Now, today I'm going to dive straight in. I want to talk about resetting. And I use the word reset because I think often we see it as starting all over again. And with starting all over again becomes the failure because I didn't do what I said I was going to do last time. And also with starting all over again, it's like, right, this is day one and I've got to be perfect. And I've said it so many times and we all know it, but we don't need to be perfect. There's, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time I'm nourishing my body, I'm managing my food choices, I'm moving my body, I'm drinking lots of water, I'm staying hydrated and getting enough sleep and all of those factors. And 20% of the time, days throughout the year, I don't do that. If you can have that 80-20, you are going to be winning. You don't need to start all over again. So my thought with reset is it's January, it's that time of year when, we are, I think I said it on the last episode, but we're bombarded with diets. And I like to see it as it's just realigning where I am because yes, I've overindulged at Christmas. Yes, I've eaten too many chocolates. And if I'm honest, last year was probably the worst year I've had with my relationship with food since I started my weight loss journey in 2004. So all of these years on, last year was the worst year. And I've been doing lots of reflection on what that was. And a lot of it was building my business, focusing on the book, trying to juggle too many plates and just completely taking my eye off the ball in terms of where I am with food and just letting someone else do everything. So James, as I've said before on the podcast, James does all the cooking in our house, which is really lovely and I'm very, very lucky. But that means I just let him get on with it and let him, provide me with whatever food turns up. And sometimes he'll make a delicious homemade soup and most of the time I'll eat it, but sometimes I just don't fancy it. And if I don't fancy it and it's sitting on the stove, then I'll think, don't really know what to have. And then I'll start foraging around in the fridge, the cupboards, and he'll make suggestions. I don't really fancy any of it. And I'll just go and eat the bag of crisps, the quick fix, the something, the bread, there's something that's not particularly nutritious. And I don't know about you, but if I'm really not in the mood and I really haven't planned and I really don't know what I fancy, it will tend to be something like a toasted sandwich, toast, bread, something that's just really quick and simple. I'm not saying that lots of other things aren't quick and simple that are nourishing, but it's just that old behaviour. It's my 1.0 version coming in to scoop me up and save the day and ruin everything that I'm trying to achieve. So this January, I am resetting, and it's taken me a few weeks to get into this as well, because I think the first few weeks of the year I was trying to fire up and I was firing up with my other areas of my life and getting straight back into routine and launching the 21 days program, which starts on Monday actually. I'll mention that later. But I was getting all fired up in all of those areas. But with food, it was a bit half-hearted and I was still letting James take the reins with it. So I am getting to some tips for you guys, don't worry. So what am I saying? Well, the first thing is, first realization for me and what I want you to think about is taking responsibility. Stop letting someone else do or dictate or blaming someone else for what you're not doing, what you're not achieving. As Holly Matthews said at the book launch, no one is coming to save you. You can keep walking past that problem. You can keep putting it to the back burner. But if it's something that really bothers you, you have to take responsibility and change your actions to achieve the outcome you want. And be truthful with yourself. If what you're doing or what you have been doing isn't working, then change it. Don't just stay stuck and think, oh, well, it's not, it's not my fault, I can't help it, or this is how it is. This is just how my life is. It doesn't have to be. If you are not happy with your life, take responsibility and change it. And as for most of what I say, it goes for every single area of our life, not just our relationship with food. So, question for you, what is it you need to do to move forward? What area is it? What is it? Is it that you're not planning your meals? Is it that you're not eating nourishing foods? Is it that you need some education about what to eat? Where is the missing piece of the puzzle? And also, what are you believing? What are you currently believing? What are you currently telling yourself? And I wanted to share an example from that my mum said to me last night. So I'm trying to make a really conscious effort to go to my mum and dad's a couple of times a month with Nancy midweek, because otherwise I only see them at weekends. And then if weekends are busy, I don't see them. So took Nancy midweek, and last time before Christmas I made a lasagna at home and then took it so that my mum didn't have to cook for us. This time I said, I'm going to show you how we do fish in our house. So my mum and dad love fish and chips, and they buy, a bird's eye cod fillet wrapped in batter or breadcrumbs, freezer food. And I said to my mum, do you know how much added stuff's in there that you just don't need? James does a lovely fish. I'll bring it round for you. Now, this fish is from Lidl. It's Bassa. I think that's how you say it, Bassa. In the freezer section. And for 2 big fillets, it's £2.39. Sometimes you get 3 in a bag if they're a little bit smaller. So I've got a couple of bags of these. I went Wednesday morning, grabbed them, left them to thaw out. And then all I did was coat them in a little bit of corn flour and then fried them in oil. Okay, I used olive oil. I'm sure there's nutritionists maybe that would tell me to use something else. I know not to use vegetable oil. I always say I'm not a nutritionist. But yeah, fry them in a little bit of olive oil and they are delicious. The corn flour just ends up like a battered coating on the fish. And I had this with like this big leafy salad with pumpkin seeds on, with loads of greenery, loads of sweet corn and tomatoes and cucumber, and it was just delicious. And my mum looked at it and she first of all said, just tell your dad it's cod, just tell him it's cod. And I was like, okay. And I just thought, this is like just how we get stuck in our ways, and how she's worried that my dad's stuck in his ways, and if he thinks it's not cod, he's not going to eat it. And I said to my dad, did you really enjoy that? Did you like it? Or are you just saying it to please me? And he was like, no, I really, really loved it. It was really tasty. And my mum said to me in the kitchen, you see, if I lived on my own, I'd do stuff like this all the time. And I thought, on reflection, as I drove home, I thought, I'm going to share this because this is something she's telling herself. This is the story she's telling herself. Because I have to cook for my dad, or because I have to cook for my husband, if you like, for my mum, because I have to cook for him, then I can only make what he's used to eating, what we've always done. And the thing is, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always had. So if you carry on doing whatever you did last year and you didn't get the results you wanted, then it's going to be exactly the same this year, unless you take a step and change something. So my next question for you is, what are you waiting for? Because I think we always put things off. We want something, but we put it off. So once my business is at a certain level, I'll deal with my relationship with food. Once my children go off to uni, I'll deal with my relationship with food. Once my parents are more manageable, I'll deal with my relationship with food. So what are you waiting for? What is that reason you are putting off? If you are putting off, I'm generalizing, but if you are putting off doing something about it, what is that reason? And if you're not, well done. I'm celebrating for you that you are taking control and that you are doing something about changing your relationship with food. And whilst we're on the subject of putting things off, what other excuses are you making to yourself? It might be that you haven't got time. It might be that you've convinced yourself that to eat healthy costs more money. It might be that every single week you promise yourself, from Monday, I'm going to eat differently, but you get to Monday morning and there's nothing in the house and you haven't done the shopping, and you just don't put in that little bit of effort beforehand to make sure that you do follow through with the promise that you've made to yourself. So, when do you need to put in that time? When do you need to plan your meals? And I know, and I'm sorry, I might have said this on the last podcast, I know planning can be a real chore and we can think, oh, it's time consuming, but you only realistically need to plan for a few weeks. Once you get into flow, you will use a lot of the same meals again and again. So you don't need to keep sitting there and coming up with new ideas of what to eat. And it's something so simple. And I'm just going to share an example of something I've done this week, because what I've done is I've taken responsibility. And I said to James, I have to just get in the kitchen more because this isn't working. Unfortunately, he was also away this week for one night, so that made me step up a little bit and make food for Nancy and myself. So I went to the shop, I bought a big bag of spinach, I bought some avocados, I bought a small tin of sweet corn and some tomatoes and some goat's cheese and some mince and the fish and so on. And I've used that spinach as the base of nearly every meal this week because I've just flavoured it differently. So I've had goat's cheese with avocado and a dressing and tomatoes and sweet corn as lunch a couple of days. But then I've used it as the spinach as a base with some burgers, and I've made homemade burgers. So I think sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be. When you just take that little bit of time to just step back and think about your week, think about where you're going to be each day and what meals you can have, and prep ahead of time, it makes all of the difference. Taking action creates momentum. I chose to make one nourishing meal. I thought if I can just do one really, really nourishing meal and I feel really pleased and happy with that, it will create the momentum to make me want to do it again. And that's where I am. So it's Thursday today, so since Monday I've been in the kitchen most of the time prepping my own food and cooking for Nancy and myself, and James has been away, and it's just like, actually I'm back in flow with food. I feel like nourishing my body. I don't want to eat bread. I don't want to eat sugar because I've made different choices that are serving me, that are keeping me really, really full. I went to bed last night and I was so full, but full on such good, nourishing foods, rather than going to bed full on stuff that didn't serve my body, that's probably causing me inflammation, and that's just making me feel really, really naff and grotty. So it's amazing, and again, I know you know this, we all know this, but it's amazing how much food and enjoyment you can get from food when you are eating the right food. Now, the other thing is, just check in with yourself, because quite often people will say to me, I eat really well, I eat really healthy, it's the snacking in between, or it's whatever. But I would invite you to just check in with that and maybe review that with someone else, because I think sometimes we can convince ourselves we are eating really well, we are eating really healthy, and that food isn't working for us. So do just check in with that and just reevaluate. Keep a food diary for a week, not to judge yourself, but just keep a food diary and look at where the holes are. Look at what you could tweak to make it even more nourishing. So that's everything that I wanted to chat to you about today. That is my reset. I would love to hear how you're getting on with your reset. I'd also love to just mention, if you're listening to this before Monday the 22nd of January, I am starting 21 days of food freedom on Monday evening at 7 o'clock. It is going to be epic. I am so excited about the content that I am going to be sharing. I've been creating handouts and training ready for the ladies that are taking part. I've got a lot of ladies already signed up and in the private Facebook group, and we are going to be having 6 live calls across the 3 weeks. We are going to be creating our own food framework, looking at balancing our energy levels, reconnecting with ourselves and food, managing emotional eating, releasing unhelpful parent messages around food, and just setting yourself up for success for the rest of the year. So if that speaks to you and you would like a place, then I will pop the link in the show notes. And this is only 3 days away at time of recording. I'll get this out later. So if it does speak to you, grab a place before it's too late. So wishing you a brilliant week. Please do share this podcast. Please let me know how you're getting on. And here's to food freedom. Take care, guys.